Good Wednesday. I almost forgot what day it was. Good Wednesday evening, folks. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with you. I wanted to kind of check in and talk about the heat today, the heat that's ongoing really for the foreseeable future, and talk about our weather impact alert that we have up for during the day tomorrow, really the afternoon and evening tomorrow for the threat of some strong to severe thunderstorms along a boundary that will bring us a very small break time-wise from the heat coming our way on Friday. So let's go over the maps and show you here what our high temperatures maxed out at today. Almost everywhere. In fact, everywhere on the map here did climb into the 90s. We got to 93 out at Norfolk, 93 at the beach, 93 also at Suffolk. Now, for comparison there, we do have temperatures that normally should be around 86 or so. And you can see the record back in 1944 was 99. Even out there currently, we've got air temperatures at 86. It is 9 o'clock at night. Sun went down about 30 minutes ago, 86, and it feels like it's 92. So it's summer, folks, and this is what it's going to be like for a while going forward as we've got a stretch of hot weather lasting all the way to the end of next week. We've got dew points right now sitting at 72. Now, the only saving grace today pretty much was the breeze out of the southwest today that did keep dew points during the daylight hours in the upper 60s, so still humid, but not the mid-70s that we had to deal with yesterday when it felt downright like a sauna when you stepped outside. Now the sun has gone down, temperatures will come down a little bit, dew points will come up, and it will start to feel very, very uncomfortable once again. Still with the southwest breeze right now, and I expect the breeze to stay up a little bit through the overnight. Here's a look at current readings everywhere else. 85 out of Currituck, 83 this hour at Smithfield, 86 at the beach to Hampton, 84 at Suffolk, and 84 also this hour down to Elizabeth City. So very, very warm. At least we're not dealing with any unsettled weather, at least at this moment in time. If we look just off to the northwest, you can see a very strewn out cold front. Not a particularly strong cold front, but when you've got such a volatile air mass, an unstable air mass with the heat and humidity up across most of the eastern seaboard, all you need is a trigger to really kind of ignite some storms. So you can see there are numerous severe thunderstorm watch boxes up now. This is actually a step below. Earlier, we had 3 separate tornado watches up in those areas, and they've all been replaced with severe thunderstorm watches. So that right there kind of shows you that this front itself doesn't really have that much juice behind it, okay? It's got some energy, sure. It will fire off some storms here locally tomorrow, but the threat of widespread severe weather I don't think is very, very high. We'll have to watch it as it approaches tomorrow, but as of right now, we're looking at some scattered thunderstorms right around sunset tomorrow evening. So that's why we have triggered a weather impact alert. So overall, our severe threat is a level 2 out of 5. Remember, 5 being the greatest threat, widespread severe weather being expected when you're at a level 5. Level 1 being isolated. So we're right kind of just above isolated to scattered severe thunderstorms are possible tomorrow. Our window of opportunity looks to be around 7 p.m. well west, closer to the I-95 corridor, to around 11 o'clock at night, right along the immediate coastline. It's a very progressive system, so I do expect it in and out of here in a relatively short amount of time, and it will clear the way for a really nice day on Friday. We'll have a brief break from high humidity. High temperatures will be closer to normal this time of the year, as you saw, as 86. And lots of sunshine on Friday, so it's going to be a good outdoor day on Friday, good beach day, and the weekend looks just as good for beach weather, too. So if you have plans to be out there this weekend, we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. But our impacts look to be some heavy rain in the storms that do come on through, some downpours. But since they're so fast-moving, I'm not really concerned with any flood threat. There could also be some embedded gusty, damaging winds, maybe up to 60 miles per hour in the strongest or severe thunderstorm cells if they do get going tomorrow. I want to walk you through now both of our short-range computer models. We got 2 of them here. We'll start off with the graph. Okay, that's our in-house short-range high resolution. We'll start things off tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. We've got a southwest wind. Expect tomorrow to be progressively more breezy. As that boundary gets closer from the north and west, we're going to get a little bit of a pressure gradient squeeze, so winds will get a little stronger by the afternoon, so gusts to 30 miles per hour are a possibility. By lunchtime, we're still dry, maybe some high clouds out there, and it's not until we approach the evening commute. By the way, on the roads tomorrow evening, you're fine. Not expecting any unsettled weather. All the storms are still well to our west at that point. You can see them here on Futurecast, out by Farmville at this point in time. Then we approach 8:30, right around sunset. You can see the line of storms that looks to be pretty fragmented as it pushes on just to the east of I-95. Certainly there could be a few cells in there that are hanging on to severe criteria with some gusty winds, maybe some small hail. Now, as we approach or surpass sunset, we're losing the daytime heating component of things. So I do expect this line to be falling apart and diminishing as it pushes farther east, closer to the coastline. So here we are around 9:45, moving through Southside. Notice it's a narrow line, fractured line of showers, thunderstorms, some heavier downpours, maybe some gusty winds too. The orientation of this line too, you can kind of see it is bowing a little bit. So that would indicate at least an enhanced threat of some gustier winds in here. Will they be severe criteria gusty winds? Can't tell right now, but there's a possibility of some gusty winds here. And then it's gone. By midnight, it's offshore. And by Friday morning at sunup, we've got a northwest wind direction shift. The wind's coming in from Richmond down to the south and east. Now, what that's going to do is bring down the humidity, kind of shove it all to the south and east out to sea, giving us some slightly more comfortable dew points in the low to mid 60s. Not bad. And it'll also keep our air temperatures down a little bit into the mid 80s and plenty of sunshine right through midday on Friday. So how does the HRRR compare? That's another high resolution short range model. We'll go through the same time steps here. Starting things off 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, you're fine right up through midday. A few high clouds, we're good. By the evening commute, no issues. Notice the proximity of the storms, pretty much in the same general area as what the graph was showing. So we've got model agreement here between these two short-range models. Jumping up through around sunset, maybe a little bit of a lag here in terms of the timing. We got it lagging behind a little bit, around 8:15, approaching I-95. Doesn't really look as organized here. Some isolated thunderstorms and some stronger storms maybe in the mix here as well. Jumping on through 9:45, same timing we stopped it at on the graph, very similar location here. So showing it driving through Southside, northeastern North Carolina, around 9 to 10 p.m. tomorrow night. There could be some embedded stronger storms in here. You see how highlighted it is down towards Edenton, northeastern North Carolina. A little bit of a gap here north of Elizabeth City into South Chesapeake and Virginia Beach, and another cluster of storms here. Now, is this exactly how the radar is going to look? No, but it's a good possibility that we'll have some modest model agreement here showing a line of fractured storms across most of Hampton Roads tomorrow night around between 9 and 10 p.m. Again, this shows it also being very fast moving. By sunup on Friday, it's long gone. Skies will have cleared. And this model also indicates winds coming in out of the north and west. That's going to bring lower humidity and some more comfortable, more seasonable temperatures. So let's talk about that severe threat. Storm Prediction Center outlook here for tomorrow has the entire area, with the exception of Dare County in northeast North Carolina, or the Outer Banks, at a level 2. Dare County is at a level 1, so the greatest threat is going to be likely farther to the north and west, where that line moves through as we still have the sun up and the daytime heating will play a more prominent role in the development of stronger severe storms. By the time it makes it farther to the south and east, the sun will have set, the energy will be dwindling a little bit, and our likelihood of seeing widespread severe weather will be much more diminished, and the isolated threat will likely remain. So we talked about the hazards. With it being a level 2 threat, I think our damaging wind threats in between a low and a medium threat, 55 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, a possibility in some of the strongest of the storms. Hail signature looks to be quite low for this event. Tornado threat is never 0, but it's not exceptionally high either. And street flooding, with it being so fast moving, won't have enough time to put down a ton of rain. Will there be some brief heavy downpours? Certainly, with the amount of humidity we have present out there. But since it won't be a prolonged event, street flooding probabilities are much lower. Areas that are normally pretty vulnerable, poor drainage, that sort of deal, maybe some brief ponding on roadways, but that'll be about the extent of it. And then the great news here, Friday. This is the coolest temperature we have in the next 10 days. 87 on Friday, which is pretty much hitting the nail on the head for the average high, normal high this time of the year. But most notable is going to be the drop in humidity. Dew points in the 60s. Notice the winds start out during the day out of the north. That'll be responsible for the drop in temperatures and humidity. But by the later parts of the evening, we'll start to see winds turn back around out of the south and east. So that'll set up a return to higher humidity. You see dew points here after dipping Briefly on Friday, they start to head back up, and by the end of the weekend and early next week, we're right back to seeing those dew points in the lower 70s. Here's a look at your weekend, by the way. 90 degrees on Saturday, so we're starting that stair-step climb back up to above normal. And then on Sunday, 93, sunny. Both days sunny, dry. Great beach weather both days, by the way. Water temperatures in the upper 70s, so very, very refreshing when you've got air temperatures this hot. And it's a change from the last couple weekends. We had strong to severe storms the last couple of weekends and a lot of heavy rain there as well, so it'll be nice to have a nice dry weekend across our area. And I mentioned Friday being the coolest of the next 10. Yeah, tomorrow 96, 87 on Friday, and then we're back in the 90s Saturday and onwards through next Saturday. So a lot of heat, humidity. Summer starts on Friday. This isn't extraordinarily abnormal by any means, okay? We're not talking about smashing record highs or anything like that. There's been no heat alerts out there. It's just the first time we're seeing prolonged 90-degree temperatures since last summer. So it takes a little bit to get, resituated with that type of weather here. We are in the south. It gets hot. It gets humid this time of the year, and this is just our first taste of it so far this season. All right, I want to talk about the tropics now, because even though the Atlantic Basin, we're over 2.5 weeks into the season, goes from June 1st to November 30th, but it has been very, very quiet, almost dormant right now. We've had a lot of Saharan dust. That is typical this time of the year. That keeps the kibosh on any development out there. But another factor that's been keeping the Atlantic quiet is how busy the Eastern Pacific has been. I want to introduce you to Eric. This is the second hurricane of the season in the Eastern Pacific, the 5th named storm of the season, and the first major hurricane of 2025 in both the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic Basin. This sucker has rapidly intensified. Okay, this morning, I want you to look at the top right. The pressure of this system right now is at a Category 3, is 953 millibars, okay? This morning, it was 1,001. It has dropped nearly 50 millibars in not even 24 hours. It's increased its maximum sustained winds by roughly 50 miles per hour. So rapid intensification of a tropical system is a gain or a drop in central pressure of 24 millibars in a day, or an increase in sustained winds by 30 some odd miles per hour. So we've achieved both of those criteria, and you can see the satellite play out here over the last 12 hours. And it went from, a hurricane, but really starting to be more defined with a well-defined eye taking shape there, and a flare-up of convection indicated here on the last imagery. Let me zoom in on this here for you. You can kind of see some flare-ups of convection or burst in thunderstorm activity right around the center here. And you can see these little notches here, flare-ups of convection right around the eye wall there. And then you've got the center that is warming and clearing out. That is a sign of continued intensification. And we are, not too far away from the coastline, but still has, 12 hours or so over open water, warm water, right near the Pacific coast of Mexico, that it could possibly strengthen even further. Right now, sustained winds of 120 miles per hour, putting it at a lower grade Category 3, with gusts up to 130. Now, the forecast does take it up a little bit higher to 125 mile per hour winds, Category 3 overnight tonight ahead of landfall to the east of Acapulco, and then it heads into the mountainous terrain of southwestern Mexico. So it will rapidly deteriorate and rain itself out, providing the mudslide risk, flash flooding threat as it rapidly decays over the mountainous terrain there. So I mentioned how the Eastern Pacific is playing a role and how quiet it's been in the Atlantic Basin. And there's a reason for that. And typically a rule of thumb, whenever we see an active Eastern Pacific, it usually corresponds with a very quiet Atlantic and vice versa. Once the Atlantic wakes up, the Eastern Pacific will really start to quiet on down. Now, has it ever been possible that we've seen storms at the same time in both basins? Sure. But usually it's a little bit later on in the season. So why does that happen? Well, when the storm's starting to develop in the Eastern Pacific, the storm exhaust, or the rising motion and then the exhaust, the outflow aloft, eventually makes its way over farther to the east into the Atlantic Basin. And that creates an increase in wind shear. And wind shear, as we know, is detrimental to tropical development because what it does is it tilts developing convection or thunderstorm activity that's trying to organize itself into a tropical system. It tilts it. It's not able to vertically integrate into the system itself, and it falls apart. When there's a lack of any wind shear, we tend to see, vertical development of these storms, and they tend to rapidly organize into tropical systems. So when we've got Eastern Pacific activity out there, that's adding to the wind shear and limits the development out in the Atlantic basin. So that's what's been going on there. All right, I want to leave you today with a quick look at the extended forecast for planning purposes. This weekend, any plans outdoors, you're fine weather-wise. Stay hydrated, and also make sure you're using the sunblock because the UV index, I tell you what, is extremely high. In fact, let's look at that really quick here. We've got a beach forecast. Let's see if I can find it in here. There it is. Beach forecast for tomorrow, water temperature is 76 and air temperatures, even at the coast tomorrow, getting up to around 90. That UV index tomorrow is very, very high. And look at what we could be looking at tomorrow in terms of, 1 to 10 in terms of the UV index. We're looking at a 10 tomorrow, which is very high to extremely high. And that means sunburn possible within 15 minutes or so. So make sure if you're outside, not only tomorrow, but through the weekend, we're at the time of the year, first day of summer, summer solstice, highest sun angle, strongest rays of the sun. So you can get burned much, much easier this time of the year. Apply sunscreen frequently if you're out and about. All right, that's the latest, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in here on 13 News Now Plus. We went through a lot, and the heat will be the big story again tomorrow ahead of the storm threat that arrives again between 7 and 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Some storms have the possibility of being strong to severe. Of course, we'll be covering you right here on 13 News Now Plus, and if there are any warnings for some of our area, we'll be on the TV side of things tomorrow. So join me again here live on the TV side at 11 o'clock tonight for 13 News Now at 11. And then Craig will be in here tomorrow morning for the latest forecast.